Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a quick video to show you my new product here. It's a anti-fuel starvation baffle for the fuel tank in your Honda S2000. It's made by Road Racer Products. He's pretty active on the Facebook groups S2K Talkin' Tech. But here's his instructions. I'm not going to go through these in super detail since they are pretty well. But the gist of it is you got to be able to get to your fuel pump. And once you get to your fuel pump, you take the top cover off. You pull the entire sending unit out of the car. And I'll have to read on that more. Okay, that's just pre-bending the tabs because this was flat for shipping. So you want to put like a flat edge and bend them up to a 90 degree and a nice sharp angle. Once you do that, you can take the sending unit out of the car and then feed the baffle plate down, kind of bend it, and then bend it over the bowl, and that's what it's going to look like bent over the bowl. The little tabs get bent down to keep it captive on top of there. And you reinstall your fuel pump, and that's it. So as you can see, you guys know I'm putting the roll bar in my car this winter. I'm pretty far torn apart right now, keeping the convertible top because I love the top down on my S2000, but this is the most room you're ever going to get to it with the convertible top in the car. If you have a hard top and you can just take the hard top off, you'll have a lot easier time getting to it, at least to start, but not too bad a position. I have a little piece of wood there holding up the glass so it doesn't fall closer to the fuel sending unit. Go ahead and take these 3 Phillips screws out, pull this off. I'm going to pull the sending unit out. So you can see here the sending unit is exposed completely from the tank, and now we're going to go ahead and take that electrical connector off so you can get that out of the way. And it looks like this is a little bit different than my Civic Si and my Civic LXS that I pulled the sending unit on. There's actually bolts that hold this to the tank. I think this tank is steel, not plastic like the newer Hondas. So before you go ahead and take this all apart, it's pretty dirty, so I just took a shot back to the top to get all the loose stuff off. And I'm going to take some Simple Green and a rag and clean all that off before I go to pull the fuel tank, because you don't really want any dirt to get down in your fuel tank when you pop this out. Alright, so I just used the end of a straight edge and bent all the tabs to a perfect 90. One thing I will say is take a look at where the laser cut meets the corners of these when it's laying flat. I noticed mine had a couple of burrs sticking off, and I could actually break them off by hand, and they're very small pieces of aluminum, so just want to make sure that you don't have any burrs sticking off of this. Okay, so I opened up the garage door, and it's the next morning to get some ventilation because I have a lot of gas in the tank. Probably over half a tank, maybe more like 3/4 of a tank. So this is going to be a little more of a pain in the ass than if you were down on empty, but I cleaned off the top of the sending unit as good as I could. You're going to want to start by taking this 10mm nut off of this bracket here, and that moves some of the stuff aside. I have an AP1. If you have an AP1 or an AP2, an 04, 05, you're going to have a fuel return, so you have 2 lines going to your sending unit. If you have a 06 to 09 model AP2, you're only going to have 1 fuel line because they don't have a return system. So pop these 2 fuel lines off, pop that 10mm nut off, and then you have 8mm nuts all the way around the steel ring, and that should break the seal, and you should be able to pull it up straight up from there. Alright, so the fuel lines are disconnected, as you can see. I got the bolts, the M8 bolts on the top. Everything is ready to come out here. You can kind of feel this ring. It's stuck down a little bit, but it's going to take a little bit of finagling. There's a couple plastic clips here that lock it down as well. You'll have to pull back before you pull up on that metal ring. But once you pop that out, we'll get the sending unit out. Alright, so that was actually a lot easier than I thought. You don't have to snap the plastic tabs off. You leave that metal ring on the sending unit and you just pull up on the metal ring, and the entire sending unit comes out, and you want to kind of lean it forward so that the fuel level sensor and the fuel sock don't get caught in the opening. So you kind of just take it straight up and then tip it forward, and you can kind of pull it straight out. It's pretty simple. As you can see, deep down in there is the bowl that we're going to be putting the baffle plate over top of, so that the fuel inside the bowl doesn't just get to slosh out under high G turns. Some of it will be forced to stay in the bowl, which is the objective behind the baffle plate. I'm going to go ahead and get a magnet and stick it down in there and kind of swirl it around to make sure I get any debris that's in there from the last 18 years. I'll show you the sending unit over here. As you can see, this is towards the front of the car, so you got your little level sensor Be very careful with that. However, you do have plenty of room to get it out. It's a lot more, it sticks out a lot further on my 8th gen, and if you see the video on my channel of how to do the 8th gen fuel sock, it's a lot more difficult. But you know, 18 years, this one does have some gunk on it, but I don't have another one to replace it with, so I'm just going to stick it back in there. It's really not that bad. That's just a strainer. There is another fuel filter in the car. So as you guys saw, that bowl does sit pretty low inside the tank, and I have over half tank, so the bowl is completely submerged in gas. So I'm wearing some rubber, actually not rubber, but they're good old Harbor Freight nitrile gloves, the heavy duty ones. These are resistant to gas, so you can wear these, and they're super thick, and I love these gloves working in the garage. So I have 2 packs of them here, but they're perfectly resistant to gas, so you can go ahead and stick your hand down in the tank to put this baffle plate in there. Alright, so the baffle is in. It took a lot of bending of my arm and cuts on my arm to get it in there with the soft top in the position it's in. I had to pull up on the glass quite a bit, angle my arm, kind of elbow back there, and push up with this, and really work your way around. The hardest tab to get to is the one that's located up front on the right. You got to kind of fold your fingers around the cavity and then just really with all your might squeeze. I managed to get it in there. It seems pretty tight and whatnot, so as you can see, it's ready to drop the sending unit back in and get this job done. Alright, so the sending unit's back in the car, just hooked up the fuel lines, and when torquing these, I didn't really torque them, I just did a light snug with my hand on a 1/4" drive ratchet, but make sure you thread them on by hand first, and use like the extension by hand, and do a crisscross pattern on them all simultaneously to seat the gasket evenly on all sides. You don't want to just torque one side with all the other sides loose, because the gasket will rock to one side. Once you do that, don't forget to hook your bracket back up with your 10mm nut. And now fuel lines are hooked up, so all I gotta do is slap this cover back on. I'll take this harness out of the way. Plug that back into the sending unit, and then pop that baby back on. And we're done, and we can proceed to install the roll bar.